James Swanwick here. Welcome to the Alcohol Free Lifestyle podcast. And today our top coach, Victoria English, is interviewing her father, Bob English, who is an 83-year-old man who's been alcohol free now for 42 years. And Bob is a business owner, a former Ironman. He's a husband, dad, and grandfather. And he says that he nearly surrendered to the grips of alcohol many years ago, but he's turned his life around and he's 42 years alcohol free, which is incredibly inspiring. I'm running into so many people these days who are choosing alcohol free. I'm recording this right now from Bali, Indonesia. And I just met someone yesterday who has been alcohol free for 2 years. And a lot of my new acquaintances or friends here are either alcohol free and have been for a good year or two, or they have a drink on occasion. So I'm not sure whether this area of the world attracts that type of person, but I am just noticing so many more people who are attempting this, doing this, and choosing to live an alcohol-free lifestyle. I'm having a look on CNN.com at the moment. I'll go on to FoxNews.com as well, just so I've got the left and the right, so no one can accuse me of bias. But it's interesting, all these things in the world. CNN's headline is, "This invisible gas could seal our fate on climate change." And they're talking about, there was a big report coming out about climate change. New Zealand to slowly reopen to the world from early 2022. Tom Hanks' son is ranting against vaccines despite parents' COVID battles. There's a story about Sex in the City being back. There's a story about cryptocurrency, $600 million of crypto being gone. Let's flip over to Fox News now. Fox News is saying, cops feel under attack as Democratic mayor defends call to rush send-off for slain officer. I don't even know what that means. Andrew Cuomo, the New York governor, just resigned yesterday as I'm recording this. President Biden refusing to release visitor logs from Delaware despite his frequent trip. I mean, all this stuff that's going on. I'm telling you, where are all the stories about alcohol, about the damaging effects of alcohol? And I know that you will feel inspired by this upcoming interview with Bob English, Coach Victoria's father, because he made the choice 42 years ago to give up alcohol and completely transformed his life. And his daughter, Victoria, who's now working in my organization as the top coach of Project 90, got to benefit from that. And her daughters got to get to benefit from their grandfather, or Victoria's father. But I'm looking at CNN and FoxNews.com, and I'm not seeing anything here around all the damaging effects of alcohol. I'm not seeing things here about people trying to encourage people to reduce or quit alcohol. It's all political fighting and infighting, and not that these stories aren't important that they're publishing. They are, but surely talking about the damaging effects of alcohol and the inspiring effects of alcohol if you stop drinking it should be more prominent in our media today. But anyway, that's my little somewhat of a rant over. If you would like to get my daily email, you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide, and I will send you my alcohol freedom formula. It's the same process that I've been walking through our clients through in Project 90. That's a free guide. If you go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide, I will send you that free guide and you will end up getting my daily email. If you don't like daily emails from me, don't do it. So just a warning. Having said that, my daily emails are pretty awesome, I think. Lots of knowledge bombs talking about health and wellness and all kinds of things. Likewise, if you would like to speak with Coach Victoria, who you're going to hear on this podcast, and potentially join us in Project 90, then you can do that by going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule, where you can book a call. And if you want some more details about Project 90 in general, you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/Project 90. Okay, enough from me. Let's get into today's episode with Victoria English, the inspiring Victoria English, I should say, interviewing her inspiring father, Bob English.
Hi, everyone. This is Victoria English, top coach with Project 90. I am once again taking over James's podcast, and I have a very special guest today. Very special to me, and I think by the end of this episode, he will be special to you as well. I am interviewing my father, Robert English. He goes by Bob. I've known him, well, all my life. And he has an incredible story, which some of our current Project 90 members know a little bit about. And he, just the little bit that they know, has inspired all of us so much that I was asked to interview him. So please welcome Bob English, my dad. Hi, Daddy.
Hi, sweetheart. And hello to everybody.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So I live out in Denver. My dad lives in Lakeland, Florida, a little town between Tampa and Orlando. That's where I grew up from age, I think, 4 to 17. And yeah, we're just going to talk a little bit about your life, your story, and how giving up alcohol changed just about everything for you. So let's start with just a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like? Things like that.
Okay, well, I was born in 1938, 83 years old. I was born in the coal regions of Pennsylvania, Frackville, PA, and I had 3 brothers growing up and 4 sisters, so we had a large family. My father died when I was 10 years old, but he actually left for the TB sanitarium when I was 8, so I knew him up until I was 8 years old. He was a strong disciplinarian, but I remember him being that. But I have some warm memories of him going out picking huckleberries and him watching me pitching ball games and so forth. But I didn't have him to help me grow up, but I did have my brothers, and they looked out for me. And all in all, we were a very happy family. My mother did a good job of raising us. We had a strong ties to each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know family was always very important to you. And as your daughter growing up, I could see the pain of growing up without your dad. And I'm sure that was incredibly difficult. When you graduated from high school, I know you went into the service. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I joined the Coast Guard in 1956. And for most of that service time, I spent it on an icebreaker, the USCG West Wind. And I made 3 trips to the North Pole, the Arctic Circle, and 1 long trip to the Antarctic. And in the service, I learned one thing in the service I thought was important, that we had 175 crewmen on that ship, and we were black and white, Latinos, Filipinos, and everybody got along. Everybody liked each other. We were a good crew. And it just gives me hope for the world, that if people get together, most people are good-hearted and want to get along. And that was proven to me on that ship. So that was a good lesson I learned in the service. And looking back, it was one of the most enjoyable periods of my life.
I bet. I do know, though, that those trips to all those cold places are the reason that I grew up in Florida.
That's correct. I was down in the Antarctic. It was 40 below. I was using a blowtorch to heat up nails so I could pound them into the wood without them breaking. They got so brittle. And the thought crossed my mind, when I get out, I'm going to go someplace warm. And that was...
And you did. And you did. So, you know, I don't know what the culture was around alcohol when you were growing up and came of age and when you were in the service and everything, but I would imagine there was a lot of drinking going on with you and the guys.
Well, I had my first beer in high school, and that was driving around in the back seat, buying a quart of beer and going to the drive-in and things like that. But it wasn't anything serious. It didn't affect me at all. And then when I got into the service, that was a drinking atmosphere. Fortunately for me, being on an icebreaker, I was gone in the Antarctic almost 7 months, and it was a 3-month trip up to the North Pole. So I spent a lot of time on board ship and didn't have the opportunity to drink. But when we got on shore, that was part of our lifestyle, was drinking. And I was young and healthy and strong, and I could drink till the early morning and wake up 6 o'clock and do a full day's work and just let it go. I thought, I'm okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I think that happens to a lot of us in our 20s. We think,
We're
nothing, no real consequences other than maybe a hangover, a headache, and
yeah.
feeling a little queasy, but we can get through it. So then after the service, you put yourself through college, you got married to my mom. Tell us about that, and where, what kind of role alcohol was playing in your life at that point.
Well, when I got out of the service, I actually got a job as a salesperson. I've always worked more or less by myself all during my life. And I sold vacuum cleaners and sewing machines and door to door, and made a lot of money doing it, actually. Saved enough money to go to school and use the GI Bill. Then when I got out of college, I went to work for a manufacturing company for a while, and then decided to be a manufacturer's rep myself. And that eventually led me into founding my own company, Valiant Products, Inc. And I did that with little capital. And that's when drinking first appeared to be a problem. I would get stressed out and so forth, and I would come home and drink. I wasn't a person that went to the bars that often. I mostly drank at home. But then as children got older, then I did start going to the bars. I didn't want to drink at home in front of them. But I struggled with drinking, and I knew I had a problem. And it was just I couldn't. I didn't get drunk every day. I wasn't a drinker every day, but I would go on binges. And and I look back and think how many times I drove a car, and I just thank God to this day that I never hit anybody. But I was giving up hope. I thought, what's going to happen to me? I'll always be able to make some money, but I'm probably going to end up living in some cheap hotel room all by myself, and I'll probably die of cirrhosis of the liver. And then I had a DUI, and I remember the judge, I was found guilty of the DUI. I went to court thinking I was going to beat it, which was just my ego getting in the way. And the judge told me, she said, Mr. English, you are a pathological liar and a drunk, and you better face up to it. And she sent me to this psychiatrist, and he interviewed me on my drinking. And every question he asked, and the normal questions, does this interfere with your life? Does this do that? I lied in every case. I said, oh, no, not me. And I was driving back from that interview with the psychiatrist, and I said, that judge is right. I am a pathological liar. The definition being that I believe my own lies. And so that was a lesson learned, but I didn't quite learn my lesson and continued to drink. And one time I came home, had a tussle with my son, not anything serious, but I knew that was inexcusable. I went to bed. My wife, your mother, woke me up and said, you're either going to get better or we're leaving with the kids. I'm leaving with the kids. So that day I called AA. I went to AA, and that was the start of it. I never had a drink since then. That was 42 years ago. But I really was determined I was going to quit this because I had a full life ahead of me. I had a world full of opportunities, and it wouldn't be fair to my children and myself or my family to continue what I was doing. So that was my incentive to get better. And I did. And it was, I still to this day say, other than having my children, the most important day of my life was the day that I quit drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
And it opened up a whole new world for me.
Yeah. Well, I've told you, I remember that day very, very clearly because I was still young. But I was old enough that I understood what was happening. I knew that if mom put tinfoil over your plate and put it in the fridge, that you weren't coming home. I knew that, my brother was going to, try to defend us and that it was going to be messy. And I just remember that heaviness in the house. And I didn't understand it because I was still young, and I just thought, well, why is it like this? Why is daddy one person when he comes home and a different person the next day? And there was just this darkness. And I remember that day when mom took us to the room and said that to you. And I was so scared because I had remembered the times that you had told me it would stop, and it didn't. But I remember that day you picked up the phone, and I guess you called AA, and that was it. And I've told my dad, for our listeners, I don't know if you remember this, Dad, but do you remember the letter I wrote to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a letter to my dad later in my life. I don't know how old I was, but I said to him, I said, Daddy, my dad's done a lot of things for me. He's provided an incredible life. I've never wanted for anything. But I wrote him a letter, and I said, the greatest gift that you ever gave me was to stop drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that to this day, because my dad's 83 years old. Last week, he went to Philadelphia with me. I went for a monitoring for my breast cancer that I had a few years ago. And here he is, 83 years old, wearing a Rocky Balboa wig. And he's running up the Rocky steps with me and my 13-year-old daughter, his granddaughter, Aubrey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are the gifts that, this is my next question, and we'll talk about this, but there are gifts that when you give up drinking, you think that you're just giving up the alcohol, but the intangibles are so numerous that you can't even begin to dream of them when you stop drinking. So when you stopped drinking, because I remember you telling me years later, that, you thought alcohol had you in such a grip, in its grip so badly that it was going to take you out, like you said. And my dad had arranged for my mom, my brother, and I to have, enough money that we would be okay. But he felt so hopeless that he had just sort of made that arrangement and almost resigned himself to that fate.
Mm-hmm.
So listening, just, if you're in the grips of it, we get it, we understand. And I hope you'll enjoy my dad's story, because it doesn't have to be that way.
No, it doesn't. And I remember when I left that AA meeting, it was like a big boulder was lifted off my shoulders. I didn't feel like that afterwards. I said, there is hope. I can make it. And I just had that faith, and it just renewed my life. I could remember I had my own business, and I was afraid to make appointments with people. They'd say, well, meet me at 1:00 after lunch, so-and-so. And I'd say to myself, boy, I don't know if I'm going to be sober that day. I just better tell them I'll call them when I'm in the area or something like that. I mean, that's how dumb it became, that I couldn't even make an appointment with people. And here I am running a business with employees and having to meet a payroll, and I'm doing things like that. How stupid can you be?
Right.
And so all that changed, of course.
Yes, thankfully.
And energized, and
Mm-hmm.
it paid off.
It sure did. Well, the thing is, when people are drinking, and they find themselves doing those sorts of things, those ridiculous things that when you look back, they seem just so absurd. Like, wait, I actually scheduled my day around drinking.
Yeah.
I remember not making things like dentist appointments on Mondays because I was afraid I would smell like wine. Like everything was just sort of in a way just sort of tied to that habit.
Yeah.
And the freedom that you find when you give it up is amazing. But what I coach about is things like that drive us further into shame. And
Mhm.
what does shame do? It makes us want to drink more because that's
Mhm.
such a painful thing to sit with. But we're talking about alcohol, which is one of the most highly addictive substances that you can ingest.
Mhm.
And so it is going to change your behavior. It's going to change how you view the world and how you interact with everything and everybody. So
Mhm.
when you see that for what it is, and you can say, okay, it's not that I'm a bad person. It's not that I don't love my family. It's not that I don't value my health or my career. It's that you ingested enough of this highly addictive thing that
Mhm.
this is the outcome. So when you can release that, then you can get on with the business of getting better and living
Mhm.
your life.
Mhm.
When you stop drinking, I would imagine that AA was about the only option.
That was the only option at the time.
Mhm.
Yes. Mhm. And
Yeah.
but I enjoyed it. I mean, I met people from every socio-economic level, and it. I think one of the things you have to be, if you're going to be successful, is you have to practice humility, and you have to get rid of your ego, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to admit to yourself what you are. You're a drunk,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter whether you make $100,000 a year or $20,000 a year, you have that in common.
Mm-hmm.
And but I met several professionals in AA, and we formed a friendship outside of the AA meetings. Unfortunately, they're all gone now, but
Mm-hmm.
they were a big help. We mentored each other and held
Mm-hmm.
each other accountable, so that was a good thing too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's nice that you did that. And yeah, you can make those kinds of friends. And it does help to have that thing in common, that,
Yes.
the drinking thing, because you can talk freely and you understand each other.
Hmm.
You understand what it's like to go to an event where there's
Yeah.
going to be alcohol and you're not drinking. You understand what it's like when people question you, like, so did you give it up, like, for real, for real? Or is this just a phase?
Uh,
Yeah, and that's, as I've told you about what we do here at Project 90 and how we coach around all of those things, because you don't have to do it alone. Giving up drinking is a big deal.
mhm.
And I'm glad today in 2021 that there are options. You can do Project 90, you can do AA, find something that fits,
Hmm.
but find something.
Right. And take it serious. Take it serious.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So you put the alcohol down,
Hmm.
and you told me that you felt like a lot of us, and we coach around this too. Like, what do you do with that vacuum that forms? Suddenly you have more time, you have more energy, you have more money because
Yeah.
you're not spending
You
it on
do.
alcohol.
Yeah. And you
Um,
lose pounds right away.
oh yeah, you lose some weight, you're feeling good. And then sometimes people are sitting there kind of twiddling their thumbs, like, well, what do I do now? So when that happened to you, what did you do?
Well, I started exercising and running, and that became a passion of mine. And we'd go to the races together, and I'd be the designated driver because they always served beer after the races, and
Uh-huh.
I never had any, so I was the designated driver, and I would just chuckle to myself driving that car. But that's what I did. I did running and exercise and so forth, and just enjoyed the competitiveness of it, and met a lot of new friends there too. So it was a good thing for me. But I could have never done that if I was drinking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I remember I remember when you'd mow the lawn, you'd be exhausted.
Yeah, that's right. I would be.
Yeah. So as your daughter, here I am watching my dad, suddenly he's not drinking anymore. He's coming home and things are getting better. And then he takes up this running habit. And, this is, again, for our listeners, this is just an example of how putting down that one thing impacts not just your life, but your family's life. I was inspired by my dad. And so I got into fitness. Then I went to college. I was so inspired by his healthy eating that I studied dietetics and exercise physiology. I went on to I've had a career in wellness for 30 years. So again, when you think about the impact you're having on your own life, you never can anticipate the ripple effect and the life you're going to change by giving up that one thing that I understand how big it feels. It feels like a big thing, but like my dad said, when you let it go, it feels like a boulder has been lifted off of you.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
And my dad is being modest when he says, "Oh, I took up running." Tell us a little bit. Go ahead and brag about yourself. Tell us about your marathons, triathlons, your rankings right now. Go ahead.
Well, I mentioned that humility is one of the characteristics I try to practice.
Go ahead. You can flex a little, Dad.
When I was 8 years old, I was ranked number 2 in the whole world for Ironman triathlons.
When you were 80.
When I was 80. When I was 75, I was ranked number 1 in the world.
Wow.
For triathlons. And so that's my 2 biggest achievements. But last year, I was ranked number 1 in the state of Florida for my age group. Mm-hmm. And it's just something I love to do, and it keeps me in shape. And gives me a sense of accomplishment. Mm-hmm. That's what I look at over the years, my accomplishments, and having children and raising them and opening up a business and employing people and winning a race, that keeps me going.
Yeah, of course.
And I was a politician too for 8 years. You weren't here when I was a politician. You were down in Miami, but that was kind of a odd thing. I mean, when you're a politician, you have all these people waiting in line to wine and dine you, i.e. $300 bottles of wine and everything.
Oh gosh.
And I say, no, I don't want any. And they couldn't believe that I would think something like that down. And, I just smirk and say, no, I don't need it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, James and I call it attractively packaged poison.
Yes, it is.
Yes. And the people giving it to you we call them smiling assassins. The ones taking your
order. Have that attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. May I get you a cocktail this evening? And what you were saying about, the drinking at the end of the races and you being the designated driver, it's amazing when you're alcohol free to look at how it permeates society.
Yeah.
Like, why would you go for a run, race, doing something for your health and then ingest an addictive carcinogen? That makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. No, but we're brainwashed.
We're brainwashed. We are absolutely brainwashed for sure. And your company Valiant, which I have to brag a little, the V for Victoria, that's where you got the name.
Yeah, that's.
But how many people do you employ and how many years has it been around?
Well, I founded the company in my garage in 1978, and I worked out of there for 3 years. And then in 1981, I bought a little building, 1,600 square feet, and hired a welder and bought some equipment, so forth, and So since 1978, I've been in business. That's over 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I have about 90 employees right now, and we do millions of dollars worth of business.
Mm-hmm.
Our motto is let's clean China's clock. We try to take manufacturing away from China, and we're pretty successful at it.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few things when you look back, I mean, first of all, you're 83. If you had continued your path with drinking, I wouldn't have you today.
Oh, no.
Aubrey wouldn't have you. Lauren, Kelly, and Daniel wouldn't have you.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, that's just the reality of it. Alcohol is if it has you in its grips, it doesn't want to let go.
No.
And like I say to clients, however you're drinking today, in a year, you will drink differently than you do today. You're either going to not drink or you're going to drink more. Because it's not a static thing that stays the same. And you know that, and I know that.
Yeah.
But when you look at that, you've got 90 employees. Those are 90 families that, thanks to you, have employment and the kids have food on the table. What does that feel like when you look back on these 40 years of not drinking? What does it feel like? It's got to feel profound.
Well, it is. It's a source of pride. I mean, we run a good company. We're very kind to our employees, and actually, I thank them for our success. I mean, we couldn't have done it without the employees.
Mm-hmm.
And all the employees know of my background. They know what I struggled with. And for example, I won't allow a hat being worn in the shop with a beer ad on the top of it. So they know that they're not going to wear a hat to work with a beer advertisement on it. So everybody is very, very aware of, I try to make them aware of alcohol. And if I find somebody or hear somebody in our one of the employees who has a drinking problem, we make it a point to intercede and do what we can to help them. And for the most part, we've been pretty successful. And the people have stayed with us. They sobered up. They understand the importance of being sober and what it means to their future. So I'm preaching the gospel when I can.
Oh, I know you are.
Sobriety, because I value it so much.
Yes, it's a valuable thing. And it's great that you have that atmosphere in your company. We don't have alcohol at the company parties. We're not going to advertise alcohol on our baseball caps. You see it for what it is, and you're not shy about sharing it.
No, I'm not. No.
Yeah.
We didn't allow it.
That's good. That's good. It was amazing to me when I began to struggle with alcohol. And for our listeners, I thought I knew what a drinking problem looked like. It looked like what I saw when I was young with my dad. And I just figured that anyone who had a drinking problem had always had a drinking problem from the time they took their first drink or something. And imagine my surprise, because I went through college and everything and drank and had a good time and never had any consequences. Didn't really drink during my early mid-20s. Once I graduated and started having children, alcohol wasn't part of my life. So I really thought I had dodged that bullet. I thought, well, that's something that runs on the male side of the family and I'm fine. And, when I started self-medicating with alcohol for anxiety, I was having anxiety. I didn't know what it was. This was the year 2000 or so. And, this maladaptive behavior can come in many shapes and forms. So, you have my dad who was, in the service and drinking with his buddies, and then it developed into a problem. He was a business owner. And then you have me. It didn't develop until later. And I thought I was holding it all together, and I had 3 children. Then I had 4 children. It's a very insidious problem, addiction. And for anyone listening, if you're questioning, well, is my drinking a problem? I encourage you to not compare your drinking to other people, because that was my mistake. And it was just because I didn't know better, but I compared my drinking to what I saw in my father. And the real question is, does this align with my values? Does this drinking habit make me a better version of myself? Do I feel okay about my drinking habits? And if I had had that knowledge that we impart to you all on this podcast and in our coaching program, I probably could have saved myself a lot of suffering. So, if it doesn't feel right to you in your bones, in your skin, then it's not right. It doesn't matter how other people are drinking. It matters how you feel about your drinking. Would you agree with that, Dad?
I certainly would. That's well said, Donna. I even did some good serving as a bad example then. Is that what you're saying?
Well, like I say sometimes, I say, well, I'm either an inspiration or a cautionary tale. Depends on which part of the journey you saw me on.
Yes.
But when I did realize I had an issue, it was great to know that I struggled with the shame of it, going to my dad about it, because I thought, oh my gosh, my dad had a problem, and then look at him, he overcame it, and he's this superstar athlete and this county commissioner and business owner, and he's got it all together. And I felt a sense of shame, like, oh gosh, I'm going to disappoint him. But just like he said with his employees, when you've been through this, you have that compassion. You know what it's like to be in that struggle. So when I went to my dad, I remember telling you, I was in the car at carpool for one of my kids, and I told you, and you were a little surprised, and then you were very supportive.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I knew you had it in you.
Yeah.
You're a good girl.
Thanks, Daddy. So for people out there who are listening and they keep waking up in the morning with that shame, with that regret, with those broken promises again, what would you say to them?
What would I say to them?
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're getting a message, and it's up to you to listen to it. And the life that you have before you without alcohol, it's so beneficial. I can't mention all the times that I just sat back and say, dear God, thank you so much for making me sober. Yeah. Because I'm finally enjoying life. I could, there's so many good things out there to do and to live for, and you're just free to do it all. And there's a wonderful life out there. You just have to get rid of that baggage and take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason to be the way you are. No sensible reason. Mm-hmm. You just have to get up and do something about it, period.
Yeah. That's right.
What could I say?
Yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, like I say to people, and I had to accept this myself, alcohol is a very insidious thing, and it's everywhere in society. So if you drink it, as we're expected to in society, we're expected to drink responsibly, they say, but it's an addictive substance. So when you get to a point where you find that you're having problems, it's only a natural progression. That's what happens when you use an addictive substance enough times. So it may not be your fault if you were, like my dad said, brainwashed and took up this habit, which has now become more than a habit, but it is your responsibility to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And you can't do half measures either. I think I told you the story, if I have the time to tell it again, about how I decided I was going to give up this beer drinking and this and whiskey drinking, and I was going to be a civilized drinker. So I went out, I bought these little tiny wine glasses, And I bought this bottle of Champlain or Chavou or whatever kind of wine, $23 a bottle. And I came home and set it on the table and filled these little glasses and drank it slowly. Oh, I'm so good. I'm such a nice social drinker. This is the way you have to enjoy alcohol. Well, fast forward about 2 weeks later, I'm buying Gallo wine for $5 a gallon. I'm drinking it out of a fruit jar.
Yeah. That's the craziness. How many of you out there have tried to drink like a lady or drink like a gentleman? I did the same thing. I would get my fancy glass and pour my nice wine and try to drink like a lady. But that stuff, once it's got you, it's like, we want more.
Yeah.
Next thing you know,
pay a lot of money for it either.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the craziness of it. So, I hope listening to my dad inspires you. This is a man who, again, was about to give up, was almost resigned to it.
Yes,
and,
I was ready to give it up.
Yep. But instead, he said, well, let me give this thing a shot. And it has not only changed his life, but he is now, my mom has passed and he's married to an incredible woman. They have a daughter. He has been such an inspiration and role model for me and my brother, for my kids, for all of his grandchildren, and all those employees, those 90 employees. And they're taking that home to their families. And it affects how those kids are growing up. So again, this work is an inside job, but the way that it then goes out into the world is immeasurable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, to our listeners, if you are interested in Project 90, please reach out to us. You can reach me, Victoria, at alcoholfreelifestyle.com. You can click on Alcohol Free Lifestyle /Project 90 to find out more. You'll be with like-minded people, lots of business owners like my dad, CEOs, just amazing people, an amazing community. As you can hear on this podcast, no topic is off limits. We are here to really dig in, do the work, and help you get rid of this. Drop that boulder, like my dad said, and get on with your life. Get on with the business of having fun and enjoying life again. So anyway, I hope you'll reach out. Thank you, Daddy, for being here.
Okay. I just have one final word of advice, if I may.
Yes, sir.
This is to the people who are in a program. They're making progress. They're very pleased with themselves. They could see the light at the end of the tunnel. But just remember this, alcohol is evil. And you cannot take one drink because you are just one drink away from being a drunk.
Yep.
So no matter how successful you are, 42 years ago, I still am wary about alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
I fear it. So always have that fear of alcohol, and that will help you go a long ways. Thanks.
Thank you, Daddy. All right, guys. Well, again, Bob English, my dad. Thanks for being here, Daddy.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to load you up with some free stuff. If you look in the show description, there's a link there to get my guide, which is the Alcohol Freedom Formula Guide. And in that guide, I will walk you through the process and system for successfully reducing or quitting alcohol. It's the same system and process that I give to my clients inside of Project 90. And if you would like to get your hands on that guide, you can click the link in the description part of this episode, or you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. Likewise, if you would like to be considered for Project 90 to join our community and get some accountability, some coaching, and have fun, achieve some goals over at least 90 days with our help and support, then you're invited to schedule a complimentary coaching call with one of my coaches. You can do that by clicking the link in the show description or going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com /schedule. Now, Project 90 is for over 30s only. And it's really for people who are ready to get long-term power over alcohol. You don't have to quit forever, but you will have to quit for at least 90 days with our support. Just a reminder, 95% of my content is free and plastered all over the internet. If you just Google James Swanwick and the word alcohol, you'll find that. For those of you who want additional support, if you want coaching, fun, accountability, if you realize that you can't do this on your own or you just plain don't want to, then I invite you to schedule that call and we can talk about if Project 90 is for you. If you would like to take some of my supplements, swanvitality.com is the website. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. I have a liver support product called Loving Liver, which I designed and specially formulated to help remove toxins from your liver after years of alcohol consumption. Again, there's a link in the show description. We've also got a green powder there, which turns into a green juice filled with amazing ingredients to support you and give you energy throughout the day. And there's also a magnesium product, which I take every night to help me prepare for sleep and to sleep through the night. So there's a few options there. Lastly, if this episode or the show in general has helped you or supported you in any way, I would so appreciate it if you would write a review. It really does help the show climb the rankings and expose the show to people who don't yet know about us. So if this show has benefited you in any way and you feel compelled to pay it forward, just writing a short little review, hopefully a nice one, will be so appreciated and I will thank you immensely. Lastly, if you'd like to talk to me about anything at all, feel free to send me an email at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. I do read and respond to every email. And you can also follow me on Instagram at @JamesSwanwick. Send me a message there. And I look forward to connecting